Welcome to this explainer on one of the most genuinely haunting maritime mysteries in history. Today, we're diving straight into the chilling disappearance of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse keepers. We are talking about a story completely steeped in suspense, dread, and a mystery that has literally endured for over a century. So let's step into the dark, shall we?
Picture this. You're arriving at a remote, windswept rock in the North Atlantic on Boxing Day, 1900. But instead of a welcoming beam of light, you find the lighthouse entirely, terrifyingly dark. That eerie silence prompted this exact terrified telegram to the mainland from Captain Harvey of the relief ship Hesperus. It's a message that just perfectly captures that immediate, sinking dread that something unimaginable had occurred. Now, this nightmare unfolded on the Flannan Islands, also known as the Seven Hundreds. We're situated over 20 miles off the Isle of Lewis in the Outer Hebrides, and our specific focus today is Island Moor. It's basically a desolate speck of rock battered endlessly by a slate-gray ocean. I mean, out here, the isolation is absolute. You are truly on your own.
Right here stood a brand new 75-foot lighthouse meant to guide ships past those dangerous waters. It was a massive engineering triumph, built in one of Britain's absolute harshest environments. Equipped with a blinding 140,000 candle power beam, it was designed to be this ultimate beacon of safety, right? But on that freezing December day, it offered only an impenetrable, chilling silence.
So, the relief tender Hesperus battled incredibly rough seas to finally reach the island on December 26th. But as they pulled up, Captain Harvey and his crew were met with a really alarming sight. There was no welcome flag flying, the usual provision boxes, nowhere to be seen. And when they blasted their steam whistle and siren, they were met with absolutely zero response, just the howling of the wind.
I want you to put yourself in the shoes of relief keeper Joseph Moore for a second. Imagine frantically rowing ashore, climbing the steep concrete stairs to the station, and finding the entrance gates and outside doors completely closed. Pushing his way inside, Moore was met with this heavy, eerie stillness, broken only by the gale outside. Honestly, it's the kind of silence that must have made his blood run absolutely cold.
And you know, the sheer mundanity of what Moore actually found inside somehow makes the whole scene even more terrifying. He discovered a domestic routine that was just perfectly suspended in time. The kitchen was entirely tidy, the massive lamp was meticulously trimmed and ready to go, but the beds were empty, the fire was ice cold, and unnervingly, all the clocks in the lighthouse had just completely stopped. There were no signs of a struggle or panic, just a sudden, echoing absence.
The three men who vanished were Principal Keeper James Duquette, Assistant Keeper Thomas Marshall, and Occasional Keeper Donald MacArthur. Now, these guys were not amateurs. They were highly experienced, seasoned keepers who knew the sea's deadly moods intimately. Yet, somehow, they had seemingly evaporated into the freezing air without leaving a single farewell note or trace behind. But here is the absolute kicker, the single most haunting clue found inside the wardrobe. While Duquette and Marshall had clearly taken their heavy sea boots and waterproof oilskins, Donald MacArthur inexplicably left his heavy wearing coat behind on its peg. Think about that for a second. This means that whatever happened outside, it was so incredibly urgent, so frantic, that MacArthur literally rushed out into a freezing North Atlantic storm in just his shirt sleeves.
So let's look at the timeline. The perfectly normal logbook entries tell us the morning work on December 15th was completed without a hitch. But something catastrophic clearly happened that afternoon. We know this for a fact because by midnight on the 15th, the passing steamer Archator reported that the powerful Flannan Isles beacon, which should have been piercing the darkness, was inexplicably dark.
Section 1. Carnage at West Landing. The physical evidence on the cliffs.
So contrasting that perfectly tidy, frozen-in-time interior, what investigators found outside was a completely different story. When Superintendent Robert Muirhead arrived, a forensic look at the steep, rocky cliffs revealed an absolute scene of violent destruction. Heavy iron railings were twisted and ripped right from their foundations. Thick mooring ropes were torn apart and scattered. Essential equipment was simply gone. And the only witness to this violence was the lighthouse itself, just standing silently above. To really emphasize the terrifying force of the ocean here, investigators found that a massive block of stone weighing upwards of 20 hundredweight, guys, that is a full ton, had been entirely dislodged from its position and violently pushed down the concrete path. The sheer raw power required to move a stone of that size up a cliff is just almost unfathomable.
And it gets even more chilling. A life buoy and a heavy wooden storage box that had been securely fastened in a crevice, a staggering 110 feet above sea level, had been totally ripped away and washed into the abyss.
Which obviously brings us to a really terrifying question. What kind of force of nature could possibly reach 110 feet up a sheer cliff face, shatter iron, move a literal ton of stone, and completely erase 3 experienced men without a single trace? Well, to understand how this could possibly happen, we kind of have to look past the old folklore of sea monsters and ancient curses and actually examine modern oceanography. Superintendent Muirhead's official report ultimately concluded that the men were likely rushing to secure that mooring box at the West Landing when, as he put it, an unexpectedly large roller had come up on the island and swept them away with resistless force. Basically, a tragic sudden accident.
And you know what? Today, science completely backs Muirhead's theory up. We now know for sure that mathematically proven freak waves, or rogue waves, can and do suddenly form in the open ocean. These are sudden, towering walls of water created by overlapping swells or currents that strike with absolutely zero warning, possessing unimaginable destructive power. It's a real thing.
Plus, what makes Island Moor particularly deadly is its geography. The island features these narrow, rocky gullies known as geos. When massive incoming oceanic swells hit these geos, the water is violently compressed. This causes the freezing water to literally explode upward with immense hydraulic pressure, essentially creating a watery cannon blast more than powerful enough to scale those 110-foot cliffs and just rip the men right into the sea.
Okay, but why would these seasoned men brave a storm in the first place? Well, historical records actually show that Keeper Marshall had previously been fined 5 shillings for losing equipment in a gale. So this gave the men an incredibly strong financial and professional motive to go out and secure their gear. An unexpected rogue wave crashing up the cliff could have created a super frantic immediate emergency, which perfectly explains why MacArthur might abandon his coat and run out to help his crewmates.
But while the ocean provides a really solid physical explanation, we also definitely have to consider the environment they lived in. The crushing psychological strain of being trapped on a wave-battered rock, completely cut off from the rest of the world for weeks at a time, is incredibly heavy. The boundary between a cozy human routine, like a nicely tidied kitchen, and utter violent natural fury is so incredibly fragile out there.
Section 2. An impenetrable silence, the enduring legacy of Island Moor.
So despite everything modern science tells us, the complete lack of bodies and the total absence of surviving witnesses still leaves this haunting void. We're left to just imagine the sudden, visceral terror that must have gripped these 3 men before they were swallowed by the impenetrable silence of the North Atlantic. It leaves us wondering, did the sea simply claim them in a violent instant, or does that cold, silent lighthouse keep a darker secret that will never, ever wash ashore? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder that in the silence.